Good day to Ms. Angela. Today, my group and I will be presenting our discourse analysis. We will be presenting our analysis of the two speeches we have chosen. So the presenters for today consist of ASHITTA, Ellyfah, MEGAT, myself, Nariza, and Ms. SYAZWANA.
So in today's study, we will be talking about the political speeches of two leaders from different countries. As you can see, the first one is from the Western countries, Senator Mike Johnston, on the ladder to success. And the other one is the Eastern speech titles from the Minister of Education, Sir Ong Ye Kung, on how education should transform to prepare the future generation. So both these leaders' speech were in concern of the educational domain.
Okay, so for the first one is Speech Act. For the first sentence is from Western speech, declarative sentence, whereas we can see from the example of the speech taken from this speech, the speaker has declared by stating the fact that there are numbers of students who graduated from high school.
As what my group member has mentioned, for declarative sentence for Eastern, this sentence does not ask a question, it expresses a strong emotion with an information on it.
And the second one is integrative sentence for Western speech, where the speaker has questioned the audience or the hearer. This can be seen in the speaker's question, where he used the word "you" as a question.
For integrative sentence Eastern, this sentence belongs to alternative integrative sentence. So as you can see, there's an helping verb in the beginning of the sentence, and there's a "or" in the middle of the middle of the question sentence, which is designed to ask more than one question. As for the directives, as for the directive Eastern, so what the minister is trying to say here that is he's not asking question, but he is trying to suggest the people or his audience to move on with life instead of sitting on the existing system.
For the Western directive speech has not found, but we have Precautionary Act, where this can be seen when the speaker has mentioned that he has decided to join the military, where it will partly change his life by joining the military, since Precautionary Act is where we can see the consequences of the speaker's action.
For Illocutionary Act Eastern, so basically the minister has mentioned a story there, and then he has an ulterior motive in this particular story. Basically what he's trying to say that is he wants parents to let go of their kids and let them choose what they want to be in future regarding the educational domain.
And next is commissive for Western speech, where in this part where we can see in the example shown that the speaker tried to persuade the audience about the fact that if they join the institute, they will have a promising future.
As for the commissive Eastern, the speaker is trying to commit himself to this particular statement that, as you can see in this sentence, he has used the word ensure that as he is committing himself to this statement.
And next is for expressive or Western speech, where the speaker expresses his gratitude towards the audience for listening to his speech on that day.
And for expressive Eastern, basically the minister is thanking the chairman for giving him an opportunity to speak. For the representative Eastern, this statement was given by one of his member in that particular day of giving the speech. So he is agreeing to this particular person's speech. So representative means that he believes in this particular speech to be true.
Okay, for next one is a maxim, where in Western we have maxim of quantity, where the speaker tends to give more information on details on how the speaker starts a new journey on having a new small high school in the beginning of his speech.
For the Eastern, this sentence has violated the maximum of quantity. As you can see in the sentence, there's a particular word name very high. So this minister did not mention particularly what was the rate. So he should have given a numerical value to compare the current situation.
Okay, next one is this one is from Western speech, where maximum of quality is present, where the speaker throwing a fact to the hearer for them to understand better the content of the speech. Next.
So as you can see, this both sentence here has violated maximum of manner, and he did not. This sentence tend to be ambiguous because it was in the beginning of the sentence, and he did not acknowledge what is he going to talk about. As for the second one, it has violated the maximum of relevance, As you can see that in the previous statement in his speech was in a question mark form, and he did not begin the speech with a solid form of question. Next.
Now for the word frequency, I have analyzed the Western speech in order to analyze the word frequency. So this 10 minutes duration speech from Senator Mike Johnston's from Western speech consists of 2,029 words in total. So for the word frequency analysis, the chosen criteria will be analyzed are the 10 pronouns used in a speaker's speech. The following pronouns are as listed in the table. So as seen from the table, the pronoun we has the highest number of words. This pronoun has a total of 53 occurrences in the 10 minutes of speech being analyzed. Firstly, one of the main reasons why, next slide please. Firstly, one of the main reasons why we are a commonly used pronoun, especially in speeches, is due to the fact that it creates an institutional identity, meaning the speaker is not only speaking on his own behalf, however, he's representing a larger institution. In this case, the speaker, Senator Mike Johnston, often utilized we to refer to himself as the principal and the team of staff and the teachers. So the second example there, it can develop a group of work with a clear identity where the potential issues being discussed will be a shared responsibility among everyone. So the we could also refer to the speaker and the listener. So in the example below, he was referring to we as in the listeners and the speaker as he is delivering the speech.
So for the Eastern speech, as I have analyzed this speech, and in this speech, as what IZZAH mentioned, the pronoun we has repeatedly occurred 34 times, and the percentage of it is 2.3129. Megat, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so after analyzing the whole transcription, as what I've mentioned, the pronoun we has, come up with number of words count among all the 10 listed. So the pronoun has occurred 34 times, and as I've mentioned there's two types of we that they have used. One is the inclusive we, and the other one is exclusive we. To cut this story short, basically the speaker has utilized both the we's, exclusive and inclusive. One is to state his belonging to his audience, who are the fellow politicians, and the other one, inclusive way, is to involve politicians, employees, students, children, and parents. So in total, he wants to make himself belong to his audience while he's talking.
Now moving on to lexics and phrase analysis. So in terms of vocabulary, there are a few vocabularies used for both Eastern and Western speeches. Now one of them is metaphors. So one example of metaphors in Western speech is the word dessert. So dessert is seen to be eaten at the end of the meal. What the speech is trying to imply that his speech will be short and simple, as he does not want to keep the audience for too long.
Now for the Eastern, they also have utilized metaphors. For the first example, as seen for the sentence in the table, the first example, the speaker mentioned that the education needs to wear lighter academic color. It is clear that from this, he does not mean it literally, as education is not an object or a person or a physical being to begin with. Therefore, the underlying meaning of this text illustrates how the speaker's aim is to change the education system for the better. Basically, he wants to emphasize the importance of shifting the current focus of the education system onto the students' needs.
So another vocabulary used for Western and Eastern speech is emphasis. So for one example, for the Western speech is the word send you home. So in this sentence, the principal is intended to expel the students, but instead of saying that he will expel them, he used the word send you home to make the sentence seems less harsh.
For the Eastern, the euphemism here is the word lion-hearted. From this, the speaker wants to emphasize that parenthood is not for everyone who are not strong-willed. He's trying to give his reasoning towards why people should only have children if they are brave enough to face the issues that comes along with having children.
Next is in terms of grammar, there are modality. So for the Western speech, one example of modality is the word possible. So as you can see for the sentence right there, the speaker has used the word possible 8 times in his speech, indicating how he sees desired things as things that are attainable.
And for the Eastern speech, he has utilized willingness for modality. This indicates in order to demonstrate the importance of focusing on the students' attitudes towards the world, meaning that it focuses on the students' own actions towards taking risks, to innovate, to create.
There are also differences when it comes to lexics and phrase analysis for Western and Eastern speech. So for the differences for Western is nominalization. So one example is the word commitment. So commitment is a noun that comes from the word verb, which is commit, which is to perform and carry out. But in this sentence, when it becomes a noun, commitment means the dedication to cause and activity.
So for the Eastern, he has utilized rhetorical questions and questionings in his speech. So this is a notable feature of his speech because one of the advantages of applying rhetorical questions into speeches is to increase the number of audience engagement, meaning it will generate an audience who actively participate rather than remaining passive throughout the entire speech. By asking rhetorical questions, it will allow the audience to critically analyze and ponder over the questions asked. For example, as stated in the table, from the questioning, he started his speech with a questioning. From this, right off the bat, the audience is being given a hard-hitting questions over the issue to analyze over. Thus, the audience will actively listen to the speech and hope to know the answer. And for the second reasoning is because it's in order to emphasize a statement.
So for the section of paragraph analysis for the Eastern speaker, he displayed good cohesion because he uses reference words such as this, they, and them. And by using these words, he is able to link the words together to form a meaning.
So for the Western part cohesion, as you can see here, the speaker tends to repeat the word I want to tell you to deliver his main point. So yes.
In terms of text structure for the Eastern speaker, his speech contains the chronological structure, which is the process of conveying information in the order of time. And his speech also contains the sequence structure, which is the speaker had organized his points by stating it step by step.
So for the Western part, Western speech, we have long sentence and short sentence. For the long sentence, the reason why the speaker used the long sentence is to elaborate or give explanation on previous information that he have give in his speech. And for the short sentence, as you can see at the example given, the speaker used short sentence to express his gratitude towards the audience.
So for the interpretation of findings, so for the first part of the speech, it can be seen that the speaker has an ideology where he sees adults and kids as equals, as you can see from the example right there. So he gives the rules of what he applied as a principle when he was giving a speech to a student, and he also used the same rules when he was giving a talk to an audience. So this implies where the speaker sees adults similar to children as he treats them in a similar manner. So the second part of the speech is the speaker has a vision that is almost unattainable at the moment because of the example written right there. And then after he said his vision, the parents and teachers call him as crazy. This implies how he has a vision that was quite almost impossible to be achieved at that moment. Next slide. And then at the third part of the speech, the speaker has a belief that all desired things are possible with the presence of two things, which is truth and hope. So the first part, it means the first part when you say about the truth without hope is a failure, it means that one cannot have a desire without hope. And the second part, second sentence, when he said about the truth, without hope, without truth is fantasy, means that one cannot have hope that are not realistic. Therefore, what he's trying to say to the audience is that one needs both hope and truth in order to achieve all desired things. The last part of the speech is the speaker wants to address the matter of knowing and believing is important in difficult situations. So for the first part, when he said like not knowing that it doesn't make you well, it means that if one does not know that they're in a troubled situation, it does not make the situation any easier. And then for the second part, it means that if one if she knows that they're in a troubled situation, but they choose to believe that there's no solution, it will only make them hopeless. Therefore, what the speaker is trying to tell the audience is that not only you need to be conscious of when you are in a troubled situation, but you also need to believe there are possible solutions for it.
And for the Eastern part, in the first section of Sir Ong Yi Kung's speech, he has mentioned that the world is rapidly changing and affects the education system. For this one, the speaker has mentioned that even the world is changing rapidly, it affects the education system as well, because it could affect students' performance. Okay, so for the second section, the speaker has mentioned that there are a few features of education system that have identified in order to create a solid education system and prepare students for a better world. As the example given, speaker has the ideology on getting a better system, education system, by maybe focusing more on their talents instead of the academics. So they believe that if we can balance with the academics and the other skills, the education system will be better. So next. Okay, so the speaker also believe that the employees that work in education field are one of the people who make the system worse, because without these people efforts and sacrifice in various kind of work, such as lecture, admin, and etc. Means that the speaker believe that it's not only students that make the education system works, but also the teachers and all the staff that support the education system as well. And as the hearer is, his speech is direct without any ambiguous sentence that might lead to a misunderstanding and false information.
Moving on to facultatory for the Western speaker. For the opening, the speaker begins his speech with a simple greeting and expression of gratitude. Then he continues by telling a joke. This shows that the speech did not have a high level of formality. And for the content, the speaker uses repetition in the sentence to convey the important ideas of the speech. And for the closing, the speaker portrays the feeling of being around people who was eager to make a change, such as Abraham Lincoln and also Martin Luther King. So by doing this, he connects with the audiences to realize the achievement that they would have if they all work together. And moving on to grammar, for transitivity, the sentence below is an active sentence which is followed by encouragement that invites audiences to contribute towards a particular goal. And for modality, the speaker uses the word should in his speech to demand the audiences to heed what he had uttered. And for coherence, the speaker often used the pronoun I, since his speech was delivered in a storytelling manner. This way, he is able to relate his experiences to the listeners. And for discourse practice, for dimension of social practice, the speaker delivered his speech spontaneously, since he did not look at the script or paper as much, and he maintained eye contact with the audiences most of the time. Therefore, it can be concluded that his speech was not prepared by someone else. And for power relation, the speaker was a state senator and also a former principal. So he had the power and influence to deliver a speech that could convince the listeners. And moving on to analysis of social cultural practice for situational, the speaker delivered his speech in a setting where the people of power are present, such as the school staff, for them to extract the important information that had been conveyed. And for institutional, the speaker, as a former principal, had the power to utter the declarative and commissive sentences to convince listeners regarding his intentions towards a better future. And for social, the speaker intends to acknowledge the listeners that they are able to make something happen by emphasizing the key roles that are involved.
Now, for the Eastern speech title, for the opening of the speech text, Sir Ong Ye Kung opened his speech in an extremely direct and brief manner, meaning there was no formal and lengthy greeting. He simply addressed the chairman as Mr. Chairman, and there were no other greetings towards the other listeners in the room. As mentioned previously, this speech was delivered at a Committee of Supply debate in Singapore. Meaning Sir Ong Ye Kung directly approaches the issue which discusses Singapore's education system. This can be observed in the example listed. So the content of the speech, the issue which was mentioned in the opening speech was raised in the content of the speech. However, in this section of the speech, before directly addressing the issue he has raised earlier, the speaker instead mentioned the positive remarks applauding the educational system in Singapore and how it has a strong, solid foundation that produced several outstanding outcomes. He then continued his speech with providing real-life example for 40 years ago, exclaiming how the previous ministers was able to successfully solve the presented issue. And the content, for the content of his speech, he continued introducing the solution to the audience. And for the closing of the speech in this section, he ended the contents of his speech with closing words. He finished it with powerful statements that highlight what he stands for as a person. So for the grammar, in Sir Ong Yeo Kung's speech, there are plenty of active forms with the subject we being used. The reason why this was implemented in his speech is due to the fact that it will produce an effect on the audience mind to the sentence delivered. The word we was used to symbolize both the speaker and the audience on what they could actively do together for a better future. As seen from the example, it is an active form due to the fact that placing the we at the front of the sentence will allow the audience, it will allow to make the sentence stand out because the speaker is basically calling out the audience in the room. And for the theme, as mentioned previously, the speaker's speech was delivered at the Committee of Supply debate in Singapore with an audience of other people with high power, meaning he will be required to be formal in his speech, especially because the overall topic of his speech is surrounding a serious matter which impacts education in Singapore. Therefore, it needs to be addressed in a proper manner using correct wordings and structure. So for the modality, according to Fairclough, his viewpoints on modalities is similar to it being assertion of power, and it is a tool that can interpret into attitude. So in this, in his speech, the speaker has few modalities that can be identified. For example, need, must, let. Meaning, from this example, it is evident that the speaker has exerted some power over the audience. Meaning, he has placed a command or a demand onto the targeted audience. And for the discourse practices, the dimensions of social practice, as seen, his speech is considered as an argument speech. This is because the speech was delivered as a form of communication to persuade the audience that they should agree with him on the message that he was trying to convey. So in order to do so, he has provided evidence and reasons to support his points. And for the power relations, the speaker was, as mentioned, the speaker was the Minister for Education before being elected as the Minister of Health in Singapore. From this, it is evident that he is considered as someone of high power in Singapore, and his opinion highly matters, and he has a voice in certain matters. As seen from the example here, he has utilized the word I to indicate that his opinions and his voice matters, and he has the right to give an opinion on the other person of power's statement. So for the analysis of social culture, situational, the speaker's speech was very contextual with the circumstances at the time it was delivered. What was going on at the time of this speech was delivered had a significant impact on the issues discussed. For example, here he was discussing regarding the skills future, regarding implementation of skills future towards enhancing enhancing the students' skills. For the institutional, he is addressing, he is representing not only as the Minister of Education, however, he is also representing as a parent himself, where he is trying to persuade other parents to let the children decide for themselves and to let them discover on their own. And then for social, the speaker delivered his speech in order to propose an idea which can help to enhance and improve the educational system in Singapore. Therefore, this speech is about his reasonings on why he thinks this is a crucial act.
So for the comparison of speech, for speech acts, both speakers use declarative, interrogative, commissive, and expressive sentences in their speech. And however, the Eastern speaker included directive speech act in his speech, while the Western did not. And for word frequency, both speakers use the pronoun we as the most frequent pronoun in their speeches. However, the Eastern speaker included the pronoun us in his speech, while the Western speaker did not.
For lexical and phrase analysis, the similarities is both speakers tend to use a lot of metaphors in their speeches. This is to express the message that they want to give so that the audience will understand the speech more. And for the differences is the Eastern speech, they ask more rhetorical questions. Meanwhile, the Western speakers tend to give more like a storytelling kind of speech, because storytelling lets speaker bring information to life, while rhetorical questions make audience analyze the information in a questioning manner. So for sentence and paragraph analysis, there are no similarities, but there are differences where the Eastern speakers tend to talk in more organized manner, while the Western speakers focus more on the length of the text according to context. And the second difference is the Eastern speaker tend to use fewer formal linguistic features, meanwhile Western speaker use more formal linguistic features like repetition. So in conclusion, speakers from different backgrounds tend to deliver speeches in different manner is because they came from different backgrounds. So it's very crucial for us to remember and to know that people from different parts of the world will differ in delivering messages, even though if they were to give speeches in the same topic in the same language. That is all from us. Thank you.